How we doing, everybody? This is episode 78 of the Weekly Wave. It has been chaos. We spent 28 hours in the car in the last 3 days. Over the last 2 weeks, we've spent about 60. But we're getting through it. It's a beautiful summer tour. Right now, I want to give a special shout out to all my friends in Sandown, New Hampshire, who let us celebrate the release of the Big Crash live album with them for a Wicked House show at my boy Evan's place. So it was banging. Thanks to everyone that came out, that bought merch. That was so kind. And I love you dearly. So thanks for coming, everybody. It was kick-ass. So let's talk about what's going on in the week. We got a lot of wonderful dates coming out. The live album is now available for your streaming needs wherever you want to check it out. And this week's guest is a gentleman that I met at the Dead and Company show a couple weeks ago. His name is Andrew Size. He is a multi-medium artist. I think he started in the music world. Now he dabbles in a lot more paint-centric kind of mediums, but dabbles in a lot of things. Extremely talented dude, such a kind person. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. You're going to get the first 15-ish minutes on here. And if you want to watch the episode, as always, please check it out on YouTube. Without further ado, everybody, this is Andrew Size.
If you love what you do, then you're not working.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same, I don't know.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's like if you're not working towards something that feels constructive, then you're kind of burning the candle for no reason. You know, like I was having a discussion with my buddy the other day about how like at all points in the day, at all points in your life, you were actively dying. You know, like you were on the way out because we get a finite amount of time. And our cells have a half-life, and like this is just the best part of this is that there's going to be an end, and so you have to make something of it, because if it was just indefinite space, it would be like, that's kind of hard to play with. So there's like a motivation in that if you can get past the existential, like, where do I go after? It's like, you don't even get to know, you know? Like, it's like going on a new ride at Disney World. Like, who the fuck knows what they can do these days? Like, I heard there's like an Avatar ride that is all VR, and you get on like a motorcycle type. And I'm like, that's where I don't know if I'm ready to be out of my mind in the happiest place on earth and then go back to my day job as if I wasn't just balling out of control in Orlando. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, it seems like that's where things are going, though, aren't they? It's like less like real, like they're taking the roller coaster out of the roller coaster. You're like sitting in the same place with a big screen in front of you, mm-hmm. and they're like trying to make you feel these things without actually doing that.
Yeah. For some reason, that gives me the visual of like, so, you know, it sounds perfect because you can go into a warehouse pretty much that has the same amount of rows of seats, and they're all connected to these contraptions that mitigate risk by factors that you couldn't even perceive. Like, I can send you on a loop without sending you on a loop. How many times does this thing go out over a century? Maybe like 10 times where it's really bad. But we can cut that all out of the equation because you're just wearing a headset. But I immediately make that jump to like, okay, so I'm living in a tube, and I wear my VR headset, and I live my life in there, so that my analog flesh, my mortal skin can last for 200 years in this tube, and like the tube takes me on walks, it keeps me somewhat fit. That that sounds really weird and unpleasurable, like, but maybe you don't know any better at that point too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's when, like, are we in that right now?
Okay, I love that we're already on this because it's so heavy that you need at least like an hour and a half to get your full thoughts on like. I'm fine with it being a version of Sims that just has way better like features and aspects, because it is all I know, mm-hmm. and like there's something really nice about admitting that you have no control or perception of what that is. Like I would say the same thing about like any war ever. Like I've never shot a gun at somebody, let alone like shot a gun at something that I was aiming for. Like then you think that on the other side of the world right now there are people actively defending their country in a way that is more demanding than any job you could ever have here. And I can't perceive that. And maybe that's where you start to talk about someone's ability to be like a psychopath almost. Like, do they have empathy and sympathy? Can they hurt with somebody without experiencing that? It's something we all want to do. But you got to admit, at the end of the day, like, I can't tell what that is. So if I was in a machine that was putting me on the VR world and I just have, like, a full Oculus rig and it's sweet, then I don't know any better, and I couldn't even begin to backtrack that.
No. Yeah, I mean, there's no way of knowing.
Yeah.
It's too, do you talk about psychedelics on here?
You're welcome to talk about whatever you want to talk about, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the question of what's real and does it really matter? Because, I mean, it's like you said, like time keeps going, and we can only perceive what's here in front of us, and even that is like an amalgamation of what your brain's putting together.
Yeah.
Like, we're sitting here, we can hear each other, we can see each other, but I don't think that's really even what is real. It's what our brain's putting together with the limited amount of information that it can process every millisecond or whatever.
That makes me think of, like, especially when you start talking about that realm of, like, expanded experience, however you tend to get there. And thankfully, we live in a current world where the medicinal uses of these things are starting to appear more, so we can talk about them more openly. But when you think of, like, in my day-to-day life, all of my senses have a spectrum with which they interact with this environment that I know. So my perception of you and my vision is going to be what it is. I got two eyes, it sees you upside down, my brain flips it. It's like, that's crazy enough as is. But to think there's, animals in this world, that their visual capability is so far beyond mine that there's things that they might see in a room. And, like, it's weird when they talk about how a dog might be able to feel a spirit or some kind of sentience in a room. And, like, there's definitely so much going on right now that we are just blissfully unaware of. And that's awesome, Like, and sometimes those experiences not only enlighten you to that, but they give you that level of empathy and sympathy to these things that you are walking around with, like, but it doesn't affect you like that, know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of frustrating to me that isn't more, like, that idea and, like, going about living your life trying to perceive things that way isn't a more common thing. I mean, maybe it is in different cultures, but not in our Western, like, materialistic, like,
And you wonder why that is. Like, it's... I love listening to, what's his name? Graham Hancock. And when he talks about, like, a species that has amnesia, it's like there are many things that we have known and forgotten in the same way that I forget the shit that I have to do in a day. But you stretch that over millennium, and then you start to think about, like, what things are we naturally endowed with to know and to feel as human beings that come from that side of our lives? And sometimes those experiences do take you back to that. They do allow you to kind of not pop through time, but at least put yourself in that space and setting to know how far we must have come to get here.
I mean, I felt that the most when I did ayahuasca. And there's something about DMT that makes you feel it's hard to explain any of the kind of things that you feel during these experiences.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really have good words to describe what's going on. But the thing that came to my head was that, like, I really feel like the most human when I'm in that kind of, like, DMT loaded space.
Yeah.
So your, like, inner voice isn't affected at all. So you can still, like, interact and talk to yourself like you would when you're sober. That doesn't feel interrupted at all. But it's like it feels like you can, like, travel through time at will. And, part of that too has to be your imagination. And if you've educated yourself on history, then you can, like, imagine what it was like to go back there if you know enough information.
And if you're lucky enough to have, accounts of that feel like you can connect to them. Like, the hard thing about a world where we sift through TikTok and we're entertained by very fickle mediums is that we're sitting with the remnants of a Library of Alexandria or something like that. Or, I was fortunate at the end of my high school career to get to go on a senior trip to Italy and to go see the Vatican with a bunch of high school dudes that everything about it to me now sounds like the most horrific experience as an adult. Like, if you were a chaperone for 25, fresh senior year dudes going to it sounds like a hot mess.
Yeah. Were you guys able to drink when you were there?
For certain occasions.
Yeah.
There was, like, a wine tasting where, like, at a wine tasting, you're like, okay, we're going to try 14 wines. You should spit some of this out. And you have guys drinking from the spit. It was disturbing, man. Okay, one funny story about that. I remembered, so we're all hammered at the end of this, even the chaperones. We're having a great time. We have a bus out of there. It's time to go. I hit the bathroom. I'm sitting on this toilet, and I'm just like, where am I? Like, what's going on right now? And this kid from my high school, Puff, barges into the bathroom, and he's way drunker than I. He looks at me and goes, oh, dude, my bad. Just like looking at me sitting on the toilet, and he walks out. I was like, that's when you know you're close to somebody, man. But, at a young age, we get to go to these places that have thousands of years of the craziest history you could ever imagine. Like, down to walking through, like, the catacombs of the Vatican full of old popes. And you're like, what is this? Like, not only like a mausoleum, but if it was a video game, it'd be the craziest one I've ever seen. It was beyond comprehension in that. And there's not many ways to get to a similar stomping ground as these folks, rather than just to go into what it means to be a person and to touch the parts of the brain that are so primal and so part of us for many weird reasons.
Yeah, well, there's, I think the Catholic Church kind of evolved into something a little more dubious over time as they gained power and resources. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot of, we were talking about it a little before, there's a lot of truths to be found in Christianity. Yeah. And I think, it caught on for a reason at first.
Well, especially when we're kids of a part of the world where everyone seems to be Christian except for a few folks, and even they're not that different, like the Abrahamic faiths is at the and like we were kind of talking about before, it doesn't seem to matter which branch of any of these that you come from. It matters to have a spiritual practice in your life from a young age, because there are many times in this life where you'll be reminded that it can go in a second, and we really don't know what it is. Like what your purpose is and what your calling is. So there's some solace of company to give yourself an almighty and to have that known by name and in practice on a weekly basis. Do you feel like, as an adult, now looking back on your earlier faith life, does that prepare you to go into another one, or do you feel kind of satiated by what you've gotten so far?
I definitely explored what other religions had to say. Mm-hmm. I would say, I grew up with a fair amount of Jewish friends, so I was exposed to Judaism growing up, and I was, pretty familiar already with how similar it was. I didn't really research any of the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah. Well, the only other one would be Islam at that point.
Right.
And there's something that, like, we as Christians don't have the same, I can't say this as a stereotype, but I'll say it as a stereotype for this one sec. We don't have the same devotion that Islam or Judaism might have, just the amount of times a day that you're approaching your faith life,
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking from my own personal experience, I'd say I was raised Methodist, and that's one of the most, like, relaxed Christian subgroups, sects. I don't know the correct term for it. Denomination.
Bingo.
That's it.
Bingo.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very friendly and open. It's like anyone who comes into church can take communion. You don't have to, like, go through a process of proving yourself worthy to
the sacraments and all that.
Mm-hmm. And it really felt like growing up that it was mostly about bringing a community of people who care together, and the, like, Jesus and God stuff was just kind of the story that they would tell in order to, like, have a reason for everyone to come together. So they didn't push, like, believing super hard, which kind of, as I became older and started to question the certain things that I was, like, thinking about and doing, and my perception of the world and my faith and what that meant to me, it was like I didn't feel a strong connection to God pretty much through the entire time, because which, for better or for worse, it wasn't, like, drilled into you that it was like, this is the truth, this is real. like going to hell was like more of an idea. It's not like something that's actually going to happen. So it's like more of like grappling with the concepts and trying to take lessons from the Bible rather than believing that it's like this is the real word of God.
Mm-hmm.
Although they, it's like, where's the line with that as a preacher? It's like, do you really believe it, or are you just using it? You're saying you do, but that's kind of your role that you're playing.
Yeah, well, that's your job.
Yeah.
And you choose to do that. You saying that connects with me as a songwriter, because sometimes I write songs that are not things that I feel and things that I've done and things that I think. It is fiction that I portray as part of my job because I like the experience of it. And I think there's for all of us a point of reckoning with your own spirituality, and you get that however you want to. Like you talk about these moments where you feel the most human you ever have. Having a background and a structure and a way that you've looked at this before allows you to access your own point in spirituality, where you can say that I don't need to call my Almighty by your name, I will call it by my name, and to then, we were talking before about taking something from these out of your mind experiences, from whatever it be, whether it's the music or it's psychedelics or it's any part of your art. You hit these parts of being yourself that make you feel like the infinite is all right with me. Like I can let go into that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a feeling I've been trying to get back to.
Yeah.
After I definitely felt that while I was in college, where it's like the whole world feels like it's available to you. I felt like I had kind of tuned into something special and unique.
Mm-hmm.
And then you like run into like, okay, well, who's gonna hire? It's
Yeah.
like I have these ideas that I think are cool, but I don't have any connections in what I'm trying to do. So it's like, kind of like running into walls. And then a lot of it becomes about keeping yourself motivated to keep working, even though things aren't like quite working out the way that you had hoped or imagined that they might. Like,
Yeah.
obviously people will see how special I am and give me an opportunity to prove that, it's like that hasn't happened. So it's like,
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like an awakening after kind of being in this like idealistic world where I didn't really have any responsibilities, like
Yeah.
as long as I was going to class, then I could imagine myself like being super successful and
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think I'm just kind of
No, you're fine.
stream of consciousness.
Yeah, you're welcome to.
I do think that the being raised religious kind of prime me to search for having faith in something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of found over time, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit, and I'd be curious what your take is on this, but I kind of came to the conclusion of kind of creating my own like thought, like taking things from here,
Mm-hmm.
not calling it anything specific,
Mm-hmm.
but like joining together the best parts of what you like about different religions.
Mm-hmm.
And I, purposefully not labeling it to like,
Yeah,
it's loose. It's not something that I'm directly following,
Absolutely. It's like we are just this conglomeration of experiences and choices and preferences, and if you're not actively looking to shed old parts of your being and reintegrate new parts, it's like then you've gone stale. And there's something so great about not having to put a label on it. That means you get to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this thing you said about like you reach a point for whatever reason and whatever moment that you feel whole, you feel ready, you feel like you are going in the direction that you are called to, and that becomes like the highest of highs. Like that is the peak of the spectrum, and we all chase these things that we adore, and that like that's in my mind. When I was talking to a friend about this the other day, it's when a song gets written, gets played, gets evolved, and then we go somewhere unexpected. You know what I mean? Like it has grown from you and it has taken a turn that you did not foresee, and it is the coolest thing you've ever experienced. And there's something about those moments where I just have this great feeling of understanding in the universe and appreciation for where I'm at. That I just don't know how people live without a creative medium to do so,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's essential to be like long term, to be content and compassionate. It's, if you're not expressing yourself somehow, it's just inside.
Yeah.
And it gets bottled up, and you get angry because you're frustrated that you haven't expressed yourself, or, I think it just keeps building to things that are not good for you.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes you get angry at the art because of that feeling. And I love that I don't have to... Some people don't know where to put those feelings. You take it out on people not knowing that you're doing it, because it does need... It's like steam coming out of hot water containers. Like, this is an inevitable. Mm-hmm. So when I have my computer to scream at because I haven't been able to get this vocal right, when I can lose my cool peacefully, knowing that I am in the pursuit of something that I love, that's when I'm so relieved that I'm doing it in that regard. Like, I heard recently, like, you need 3 hobbies, like one that makes you money, one that keeps you creative, and one that keeps you healthy. And it's like, in those things, man, there's enough. And I'm so grateful that's only 3 things, you know what I mean? Thank God.
No, that's great. I mean, that condenses it down to, that's it,
Yeah.
That's it.
And then companionship is the blessing of all 3 of those. Like, you should work with people when you're trying to, gain financial means of freedom. You should be around people with your creative hobbies. And speaking of, I do want to hear about this piece because I cut you off before about it. But, whatever reason to be around people and to share an experience, like, there's something about the sharing of a concert like that Dead & Co show that, like, this is the second time we're meeting. This was a friendship that is brought about because of beautiful music and crazy-ass lights and a lawn full of 20,000 people that are just there to be present for a little bit, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many thoughts on while you were talking, so it's like hard to choose what direction to go in. But I'll go with the show.
Please.
That was my first Dead & Company experience. It's beautiful. I have a little bit of anxiety and, like, definitely, like, some self-image issues that make me think, like, kind of just make me stressed to go out in public. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know what to expect at a show like that, like how crazy people were going to be.
Yeah. And
it's wild. You, like, feel the love. There's, like, an energy
throughout Shakedown Street.
It's crazy.
It's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
And in that there's a safety net, and there's also a little bit of chaos, like, you talked about contentment. Like, I always want to be ambitious and content, and if you can walk that line, then you spin your yin and your yang. You get to have the balance. You get to feel the churning of the gears, man.
Yeah, and they've created a space where people can really feel like they can be their true selves.
Yes.
Dress how they want, move the way they want, feel like they're not judged by the people who are also there at the show. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it was great. And I mean, I have to mention how crazy our meeting each other was.
Totally. I'm just sitting on the lawn. I was like, I'm too exhausted at this point to find my friends. I'm going to sit here and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. And I'm just staring at my phone, man, until I hear someone say Matt. And you're talking about, like, social anxiety. Like, the last thing you want to do is be spotted when you're lost. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, no, like, okay, what am I being dragged into? And it's Ben and Natalie, mm-hmm. and then yourself, and, like, 1 out of 3 people I know. Like, okay, that's enough. Yeah.
It was great. I know. I mean, like, it's just vibes click, and you're in a space where you want to meet people and make new friends, and
there's something to carry the evening. I think what we all lack in social interaction is a feeling of, like, communal direction. There's something about, in a literal sense, when 4 people are sitting in a car together going down the highway for the next 8 hours, like, you will go somewhere emotionally because of that. Like, by the time you hit hour 6, you're all a little manic and you're screaming out the window, and you got a comedy, like, you got something on to entertain y'all, or at a show like that that's so immersive that you're like, I just want to tell somebody everything, and that's where we picked up in that moment, man. It was so freeing in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's it was really fun for me to be able to kind of like jump into things that quickly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, and this is probably partly with Ben too, you know, it's like he's a unique person. He's got, you know, a personality that you remember, and you guys clicked, and that was, you know, it's like the beauty of mutual friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people tend to hang out with people who are similar to them.
In some regards, for sure.
So you can kind of just like break through to real conversation quickly.
Yeah.
But it takes a certain personality type to be open to doing that as well, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and I think I would love to hear you speak to how the mediums that you've chosen for your art kind of enhance that. Like my friend Xavier the other day mentioned to me the term critical listening, or radical listening is what he said. And as someone that dabbles in the documentary world, like you have an astuteness to what is going on and a very clear visual frame for that. So like, where does that drive you in new interactions?
I think what draws me to documentary style things is that not all of them, but some of the best ones are with people who don't really think, they don't know where it's going, and you just have to be open and non-judgmental in order to get the true people, true story. And you have to, you know, kind of develop as a person, a trustworthy person for people to like actually be themselves around you.
Absolutely.
And like cultivate a non-judgmental character, empathy, you know.
Well, and we talked about auras a little bit. You need to be of the type of aura that it's not positive nor negative. It's ready. It's malleable. You know, and you had this. The most like memorable moment of that night is the extension to join y'all on the blanket. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's stupid, but you're sitting there on the lawn, someone says, you know, we got a little bit of space here to be, you know, in our area, and you welcome someone into that, and then you allow things to kind of click from there. And when you're doing what you do behind a camera, you need to be able to make that invite, make the space, and then almost pull far enough out to get the bird's eye view. When you're working with like a subject, how do you kind of start that relationship of the first couple moments on film and opening them up to that?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't have like a ton of real professional documentary experience, so it's mostly been with like friends or like a friend of a friend. And for me, I think one, like, it's being somewhat interested in whatever is happening so that you can relate. And for me, I like to try and have a back and forth conversation and just kind of put the camera on, not in your face. I like shooting wides, so it's not in your face.
Yeah.
And just kind of like let the words try and like pull the story out. I will say, probably even more so than my film background, is that I've gone to a psychologist for like 11 years.
Wow.
The same lady. I started going when I was 14. And that's probably given me the most tools on interacting with people and understanding where people are coming from. And, you know, I think, you can have a discussion about nature and nurture and why people are the way they are. But I think for the most part, people are kind of a product of the way they were raised. And just like being genuinely interested in people and how they work and like what makes you think the way that you do. And even if it's like frustrating, you know, you can still like go into that same non-judgmental mindset, and it's like, well, how do the dots connect here? And you know, I think meeting new and making new friends is exciting for me in that way, because like having the psychologist kind of go into therapy background, where I had to do a lot of internal self-reflection and like figure out where my problems are coming from. It kind of gives you an idea of like where other people are coming from. And for me, I can let things go pretty easily if people like say something, or like, you know, I may not like follow up with them or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not, it's like if I know enough about you and your background, then it's like, well, yeah. I mean, everything just kind of falls into place. And it's weird, like, you do have a certain amount of control over who you are, but I think a certain amount of that is kind of just like, it's genetic.
Yeah.
And, there's things that have carried over for the last 1,000 years that are still affecting your day-to-day thought process and how you interact with people. And
like demands of the being to do certain things. But what a brilliant combination of outlets to have, because when you get to sit there, and there's nothing harder than turning the microscope on yourself. We have a very skewed sense of the objective aspects of our being, and when you're talking about nature versus nurture, you're brought up how you're brought up. It's hard to backtrack those things and get to the bottom of why until you're at a certain age where we're just all required to do it, and sometimes you get, I'm blessed to have both my parents still around and have a great relationship with both of them. So I can ask them questions about, when I see a similarity from them to me, I can talk to them about how they've dealt with it, and there's so much to be learned about ourselves through the places that we come by. I never thought about, how much my siblings had their thumbprint on me until, like, I started thinking about my older sister. I got 2 older brothers and a sister right above me. So, like, she made me so much weirder because she was so weird to them. Like, she was such, like, a standout. And when I think about why I wanted to be a performer, I think about my sister doing her high school pep rallies, dressed as a nun, running up the fucking basketball court, just being a lunatic for entire all-girl high school. And, like, it's weird that there's one visual for why, but that character has given me my character, and I'm sure sometimes when you look at the fulfilled page and you look at a part of a project and you can say why, because you have the internal scoping skills to see why things have happened. It's such a light bulb moment,
Yeah, I think it's required too if you really want to make deep, honest, and whatever you do, that's your creative outlet. If you want it to be as honest and authentic as possible, you have to do that reflection.
Does it need to be honest to be authentic?
You know what? I'll actually go back on that because I think, you don't need to be like a highly reflective person to make honest art.
For sure. Some people just don't have that frontal lobe turned on, man.
Yeah, they're just doing it,
They're just...
And that's beautiful too.
Yes.
And sometimes it's messy. Like those artists, sometimes they're,
Yeah. Maybe those are the ones that we lose earlier in the self-destructive habits. But, that being said, like, some of my favorite creators of all time are these folks that had no inhibition to do anything besides what they were doing. And because of that, they were so honed in. And there's people that have taught me the fuck you in my art that I have needed for so long. And it's not to be rude to anybody, but you need a little bit of bluntness to get authenticity. And I don't even know if it needs to be honest necessarily. Like, I think about, like, my favorite fictional shows or fictional books. Like, those things were the medium to give me so much, but they needed to be so unrealistic to let me have some fun in there. Or, like, some of the songs that make me feel like I was writing a tune last night where I'm 2 verses in and I'm like, what is this about? And then it clicked. And it was about this bad date. And so I'm now going back through the song and adding specificity. So it went from being fictional to being more honest than I knew it to be, and it wasn't even up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the muse? It's like, what is that?
That is the thing you can connect into that makes you feel more human than anything else. Or when that song goes from being something that you're writing at the kitchen table at 1:30 in the morning to someone's favorite song when they come see you. Oh, God. That'll choke me up just thinking about, man. I'm a sap, though. I'll cry at a lot of shit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, I am, too.
Yeah.
I'll cry. Like, one of my favorite movies is Interstellar. And just hearing the Hans Zimmer music, I'll, like, start to tear up sometimes. It's like, oh, that movie just hits me in all the right places. It's like...
I still haven't seen it, man. It's like...
It's worth it.
And that's when I'm like, man, are you living your life correct? You don't have 3 hours to be entertained to a magnitude that you won't get anywhere else. Like to have the mental trip that is this super cosmic movie about interdimensional travel. I don't even know enough about it to speak to it. Like what?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's quick because I'll indulge myself because
Okay.
it's one
Cool.
of my favorite
Scratch.
movies. But it's Christopher Nolan who did Inception.
Mm-hmm.
He just did Tenet. This is newer film, and it's basically in realistic sci-fi, I would say, kind of, but it's like Earth in the future. Climate change has become a big disaster. And Matthew McConaughey used to be like a space pilot, and he's like retired, working on a farm now.
That's such an awesome character for Matthew McConaughey.
He plays it perfectly.
Dude.
So they recruit him back to go on a new mission to try and find viable planets for them to transport the last like group of humans to.
Crazy.
And that's as far as I'll go. But they go to different planets, and there's it's a lot of, you realize like there's a lot of reflecting on human nature.
Yeah.
And what are people's motivations, and it's very good. Dude. But it is a little long for sure. And I will say, if anyone hasn't seen it and they're interested, I'd say go into it with an open mind, because it may not be like totally realistic at times, but they portray it like it is real.
Okay.
In the story, so it's like just kind of be open-minded about.
Yeah, if you're willing to be free in that kind of mindset, for sure.
Yeah, they're not like making a scientific statement on like this is how the universe
works. Nor would they ever want to. Question for you, brother. I'm gonna get a little more coffee and hit the bathroom really quick. You want to take a quick break?
Let's do it.
I didn't drink coffee before this year, maybe like a year and a half ago. But there's nothing like getting a good idea and then rolling with it and just being like, I got half a pot left. Like, let's go, baby. Like, we're going to finish this thing.
Coffee's definitely one of like the magic elixirs of life.
Yes.
I forget who said it. Maybe it was Michael Pollan. Have you seen anything from him?
No.
So, let's see. I'll remember this real quick. What is it? Oh, it's caffeine, nicotine, weed are the three things a creative person needs to like get fully into it.
Really? Well,
not all at the same and obviously that's like whatever.
It's an overestimation, but if you've experienced those three, you know that they're like, it's the closest you can stay to normal day-to-day kind of a vibe, but still get the pickup,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been drinking coffee for many years.
Yeah.
And I got into like craft coffee, if you will. Started doing pour overs during COVID. So you buy like nice beans, you like hand grind them to a certain whatever granule size you want. And then
I never thought about. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it goes deep. It's like every step you can try and maximize whatever your preference is.
Yeah.
So I have this device called a Chemex, which I love because this guy who invented the Chemex is just like an inventor, and he invented a bunch of different like coffee things that are made out of tempered glass. So it's like one piece. You put the coffee filter in the top, put the beans in, pour the hot water over it, and then it's like self-contained in the vessel. So you don't have to like have two different things to make the coffee. It's just like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's probably a multimillionaire from this like couple ideas that he had.
Boutique coffee is definitely in the category of like a mainstream luxury that's always appreciated. And it's weird to me, like, brand loyalty is all hilarious. Why someone says Wendy's over McDonald's and things like that. It's like, we are such odd creatures. But Starbucks has these people by the throat, dog. And it's because they're doubling the amount of caffeine. Like, I drink one of their largest versus Dunkin', and I'm like, okay, I'm having a couple muscle spasms, and it's hard for me to tell when they're going to stop, like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it gets to be a lot. And you can overdo it, too.
For sure.
You could definitely overdo it. Like, have you drank coffee too close to bedtime? Have you had that experience yet?
It's not... I drink coffee like real late at night. Like I'll drink at like 11 p.m. kind of carelessly. But it's never been something that like really kept me up. I haven't done myself wrong like 45 minutes before bed. Like why the fuck not? You know?
It can get you.
Yeah, definitely seems nightmarish. You know?
I love it though.
Really?
I mean, it's probably like, well, not the staying up at night, just coffee in general. But I try to keep it because you can get addicted too.
For sure.
I was seeing someone a few years ago who had like such an intense caffeine addiction that they had to take Motrin with caffeine. It's like headache pills designed for people with a caffeine addiction. So it's like I forget what the chemical is, if it's aspirin or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it has like a dose of caffeine in there to like satiate the withdrawals that you're having.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, like you're so right. That is like it's a pretty intense withdrawal. You know, like there are certain things that are hard to quit, and of that list of 3, I think it goes nicotine, caffeine, weed, probably for the majority of people, just because of the way that the substances kind of rob you of other endorphin rushes and experiences. Like I can't imagine what it's like to quit cigarettes. That definitely seems like the worst of it to me.
Yeah, well, I started smoking freshman year of college because all the guys in my dorm smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
So you had a stoop troop.
Yeah. And we were allowed to smoke on campus, too. So we had, like, the bench with the ashtray out front of the dorm. And
yes. And this is a nightly hang kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's like, and we all became super tight. We were all really good friends. Mm-hmm. It was like an intermingling group. It wasn't, like, cliquey in the building. And so it was, like, really fun. So my association with cigarettes became, this is really great.
And when it is a social elixir like that, it's way easier to get underneath the vice. You know what I mean? Like we had a similar stoop troop at my dorm at Xavier, and I think like when you crave the security of being part of a group, especially during a time of your life where everything has been uprooted, everyone you knew and everything that you associated with is now changed. Like there's an opportunity through any of those in particular to really find a niche, you know?
Yeah, and I went down to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas for my freshman year. So it was a big transition.
Yeah.
Longest time I'd been away from home at that point of my life. And yeah, I mean, just have a group of friends. It's like I had already started smoking weed, so it wasn't like a big jump for me to get into cigarettes.
Especially when it's the same group for a lot of those things too. It's like,
and it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made you want to go to Dallas?
My mom's from the Dallas area.
Cool.
Originally. And I applied to a bunch of schools all over the country. And SMU was the best one that I got into. It's a small private school. It's very, very preppy.
Cool.
I was friends with a lot of guys who went to boarding school for high school.
That sounds unpleasant.
Yeah, I like East Coast boarding school, so it's like this school has been open since like the late 1800s. You know, it's like
sounds way more rugged than you expect too. I'm sure it's like indoctrination by fire.
Yeah. Oh, it's gotta. I can't even imagine the hazing that's going on there. Yeah. Because you're in dorm style living with other 14, 15, 16-year-olds. You know, it's like the most
heartless.
Yeah. Yeah. People. It's got to be brutal.
Yeah.
Pranks getting pulled
at all points in the day.
Yeah.
You know, just being teased for things without any idea of like why people make fun of you for them, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like making fun of you for just like how you look or whatever. You know, it's like the meanest possible way. Yeah. So it's like nothing. It's stuff you can't change. You know.
Were you picked on as a kid at all?
Yeah, I have some memories of being bullied, but it never got to like a physical. I've never gotten in a fight with someone or.
I'm grateful to be in that same category. I've never had to throw hands with somebody, and then if you have a couple friends that are fans of the game, and like you're just hanging out at a bar, and they're like, "Hey, I might throw hands with this guy. You in?" I'm like, "No, like,
yeah,
don't bring me into your WWE style alley fight. Fuck that. You violent dog."
Yeah, he bumped my arm when I was at the bar.
He ordered a drink in front of me, and he bumped me. We're gonna fight.
Yeah,
but there's something about that switch in somebody's head that like once it's on, it's kind of on forever. You know.
Yeah, I am not a fighter.
Yeah.
I'll leave the bar. I don't care if I was planning on staying there. You know, it's like
it's easier to avoid the violence.
Yeah. I mean, what's the goal? Well, you know, it's like, well, there's always a risk with street fights that you hit someone and they hit their head and die, and now you can go to jail. You're liable for all that, and it's like, well, it's not even worth taking the risk.
That's if you win.
Worst
case scenario, you bleed out in the gutter outside of like a sports bar in Lexington. Like, definitely not something romantic.
No, not how you imagined it would end.
Yeah. There's been like, there's something that I'm jaded to going to bars and getting to be on stage, and I don't like going to bars where I'm out in the crowd because that feeling is overwhelming. Like, there's a reason people grow out of that phase in their life, because to be sweated on by strangers in a bar that's too loud to talk turns you off after a while.
Yeah, well, it's like going, I like electronic music, but I'm not a fan of going to that stuff live.
Yes.
I mean, my last day, I went to, I don't know if you're like super familiar with that scene at all, but I went to a Flux Pavilion show.
I'm totally unfamiliar. That sounds sweet.
He's one of like the old, like OG, like dubstep guys. He was like, when Skrillex was coming out,
cool.
He was popular. And so it was like a rave at Bogart's downtown.
Sick.
And
while you're going to UC?
Yeah, while
Sick.
I was at school.
So everyone's going to this shit.
Yeah, it was packed.
Yeah.
It was the most, I don't know if it was sold out, but it was the most people I'd seen at Bogart's for any show that I've been to.
It's not a easy room to manipulate, to move around in.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's like, the one square, and the bathrooms you have to go to the front to go to the bathrooms.
Down the steps, and their backstage is just like that. It's like a creepy little catacomb,
But, yeah, I mean, it's like big frat guys who are probably on Molly jumping around, and it's like,
God.
you don't want to do anything that might cause them to get upset with you, because they probably have friends there.
Yes.
They're probably on drugs or drunk, and it's like something could pop off so quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's like that kind of environment makes me nervous for sure.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, if it doesn't serve the purpose of being a space where you feel free to be wild like that, then definitely no. But yeah, man, the violence thing, like, so I was playing Kansas City the other day. We finish our set, we're packing up, and the bartender that we've been talking to all night that we're buddies with is like, hey, you might want to stay for like an hour and a half because there's been a shooting outside pretty much every week. And I was like, excuse me? Like, how did I not get told this before the show? And our hotel is 4 minutes down the street. So, like, this is like a nice downtown area that just goes sketchy once the bars close. And you're like, oh. So we're packing up, and I hear, like, the police on the street, like, going through the horn, just saying, clear the roads. And eventually we're just so fed up with being kind of locked in here that we just took a load back to the hotel and then came back with the car. But just like that feeling in the air of that threat is just so nauseating and so different from anything else.
Yeah, I mean, with the riots that happened, I guess, 2 summers ago, is kind of like any downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, downtown Cincy felt that way. Downtown Louisville I went to. There was a big one there, too, so, like, everything was all boarded up. And it's like,
after the Breonna Taylor thing, everything was way, way more tense in that city. And, like, and understandably so. Like, sometimes like we were talking about with the war, it's too far away for me to feel it. But the moment that you get a feeling of any of it, then you kind of stretch into the full imagination of what this actually is. And, I don't know, it's something that I never thought we'd see as kids growing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we're the only people that would say that things kind of feel a little bit more unstable now than they did like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not, weather-wise, socially.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like things are kind of taking a darker path.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's like, and dark doesn't necessarily mean bad, but like it's kind of difficult to see where we're going. And as they turn the lights off, everyone knows that there's something about us that fears these moments of instability and unpredictability. Like in these moments where, with the therapist, you get to kind of look in on the self and kind of pinpoint things. You can start to see that in other people, I'm sure, much more clearly because you've gone through that. And when you see someone on the emotional fritz or the, just mentally kind of losing it, you're like, okay, this is a little too close for comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you probably have experienced that firsthand being a performer, traveling around the country, being in bars where people are intoxicated
Yeah.
and kind of like let that inner stuff go.
Yeah, especially
And
like angry drunks. Like you don't realize how many people have that in them. Where like you were saying, like we steam over. We all have that aggressive side, and like that's just part of the being. And you need to resolve that in your own way. And for most people, that's exercise or whatever you gotta do. But when you when you see someone that's an angry drunk up towards the front of the stage yelling shit at you, it's like, thank God I'm on a platform and I can kick this guy in the face if I need to if he starts to climb up here. But there's been plenty of moments where like you truly do fear someone just from the way they look. You can tell that they've kind of gone there.
yeah, I mean, did you, as a performer, how did you feel about the like Will Smith, Chris Rock thing? Have you noticed that there's like people might be a little more willing to like get up in your face from down in the crowd?
I don't think from that particular experience, but I think just as an adult, like you get used to heckling as a kid, but as an adult, you see heckling become like a little bit more of a threat. Because no one's gonna kick the shit of a 14-year-old playing in a bar while his parents are sitting right there. And I was playing in, smaller, easier going clubs then, so now I take bigger risks. Like I was this weekend as well. I was playing Summerfest, and like while we're being transported out of the artist slot into the festival, there's these people fighting in the streets, and our bus driver's like, he's got a gun. And I'm like, why are you the one yelling that? Like, drive, lady, like, get us out of here. It's terrifying. I don't notice that people are of a different mindset how they should approach, artists and people that are in performance mode, but people are definitely quicker to be provoked than ever.
I feel that for sure.
Yeah. And there's something scary too about like I have all my nice equipment out here, like I have all my shit, and you don't care, like these people will absolutely break my guitar in half if they want to, and like, you ever wonder if you could use your guitar like as a weapon against someone? And I'm like, maybe that'll work out. I don't think I want to hit somebody with something like that.
Yeah, well, if you get a clean shot, it would do some damage, I'm sure.
I feel like I've seen Keith Richards do that once with somebody on stage, where like they were coming after Mick and he's just swinging a telly at him.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were on stage when the Hells Angels like shot 5 people.
Yeah, there's like that San Diego festival, right?
Yeah, I don't remember the details, but yeah, outside, maybe California.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had hired the Hells Angels to be the security for the venue.
Awesome choice. And
yeah.
they paid them strictly in beer, I believe.
Yeah,
it was
beer
like,
and meth.
Yeah, it was it was a follow-up to Woodstock event. I think was pretty much organized by the Stones, and that's who they went for, the security personnel, and someone gets stabbed in the front, and then it breaks out in a shooting, I believe. I'm like, I can't imagine being like, imagine if Justin Bieber was like, I'm gonna put on a festival, and I'm gonna handle everything, and you get there, and there's a gang, holding up the front door, and anyone of that particular size and like fame. When live concerts were even more popular, like, I don't know, it's very frightening to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes me think of like the Ariana Grande. I don't remember if there was a bomb that exploded at the show, but there was definitely that situation that happened at one of her shows in the UK. There was either a bomb threat or it actually exploded.
That's horrifying.
And it's like. Yeah, what do you get? What do you do?
Yeah,
it's like, do you not perform? Do you not go out to see live music?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess like anything in life is a calculated risk, but now, like I even think twice about going out to places that are like big crowds.
This is a major tangent. I was on Reddit last night doing my scrolling thing, and it's this video of this dude that hijacked a plane. But did you see this as well?
Yeah, where he was like suicidal and just stole the plane and started flying it around, and
it doesn't even seem like he recognized this as a suicidal thing until he said like, yeah, I'm just a guy with, I guess, a few loose screws. Like I didn't really know it until now, and you're like, oh my God. But there's nothing funnier than, okay, I should say there's a lot of things funnier than a dude taking a plane. But like you're watching this video of this guy like go through all the steps for the first time. Like he turns on the propeller while it's sitting in this bay, then he moves it out there and just takes off. And they're like, who's this guy? And he comes on the intercom. He goes, hey, I work baggage. This is going to be crazy. And you're like, that's so far outside of anything I could ever imagine myself doing. But like, it's a great example. There are people that have no idea what they're capable of, and then they go to these extremes, and there's always going to be that kind of like ominous threat of just like manic behavior.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, you can't escape it, I don't
For sure.
think. Unless we have like a whole like change in our society.
Well, and I don't know if there's any way of mitigating those risks without, getting rid of what makes us human. Like, unfortunately, the chance of it going wrong is the same as the chance of it going right in any style of society. You're always going to have a couple of outliers that come with some more risk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think, I've probably heard this somewhere before, but it's like, imagine just like 1% of the population is sociopathic.
Yeah.
Which is pretty easy to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
1 out of 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's like 3 million sociopathic people in our country.
Yeah.
So it's like you scale that up with how many people we have. It's like there's going to be some risk no matter where. There's just too many people, too many outliers that it's going to happen. But
it's such a it's hard to rationalize in numbers like that. And it's such a weird thing to conceptualize until you have like one of those people in your life, and then you realize it is just like it's a real risk. In the same way that like as a kid, war didn't seem like a real risk, but like as many have happened in the world, odds are during the 90 years that we get that there's going to be at least one that we see. And there's certain like bits of chaos that you just can't avoid. My question out of that would be like, what purpose does the art serve for connecting with even people that are on the great extremes and being a community to them, in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like art can... I mean, in my case specifically, I like to make things that kind of are open-ended so that anyone can look at it and see whatever their brain puts together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to like show you a specific image or like show you how I was feeling or try and make you feel a certain way, So I don't know. I think just trying to be as inclusive as possible, just to like, I don't know. I feel like probably there's some people that have like genuinely like something wrong with their brain.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, I would imagine, it's like circumstantial and they kind of get driven to a point, It's like lack of love or abuse or trauma.
Yeah.
And
the way that those self-perpetuate is very, very odd.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel it too, like I've had my struggles over the past like 2 years and feeling lonely and, like you're never going to find exactly what you want. You have to give up on your dreams or, like sacrifice certain aspects of the way you would like to live in order just to like keep on living. Our society is kind of like, working like bullshit jobs because there's like nothing else to do, but you have to work.
You have to work to be able to live in the society. You must engage in the society in the practical ways that have been kind of set up. And I was talking to my same buddy Xavier the other day. I just hadn't seen him in a while, so it was a lot of like heavy catching up. But there's this worry of will I be remembered for any rhyme or reason? And as much as there are like the 9 to 5s that do suck souls out of people and do leave people feeling empty, there's also artistic pursuits that do that. And there's ways of not fully engaging with life that's gonna leave anybody empty regardless what it is. I think like just holding on to what in regards to like investing your time. Like I know that scrolling through TikTok isn't gonna leave me feeling better, but there's a good likelihood that parenting might be the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done with my life. Like there's two very heavy things there, and the children thing I've been thinking more about. I just got engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. she's wonderful, and she has been a partner in more ways than I can express, and I appreciate that I'm at this point now where we've learned enough from each other, about each other, with each other, that now we want to embark on that side of the journey. And from what I know of my parents and what you may know of your parents, like the world has this much to offer you until you have that connection, and then it has this much. And then when you get to have grandkids, like that is what will take you out of this life, is the joy of seeing that you don't need to last forever or be remembered forever for this lineage to have told you that you are a part of this in a very beautiful way.
Yeah, well, it's like thinking about what's the point of all this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's the only reason we're here, is to keep our bloodlines going.
And we are naturally called to that in a way that's inexpressibly stronger than anything else you do. Like the calling to repopulate is something that the animal is necessary for.
Yeah, and I mean, one of my favorite thoughts to have is that, the universe took all this time to eventually like grow something, and so that the universe could experience itself.
That's really cool. Where does that come from?
I don't remember.
Okay.
That might be original.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to claim it, though.
Yeah. That's in that same category of, like, can you see God in everybody?
Yeah.
Because if you can, then the job has been done well. And I think when you talk about psychedelics and you talk about art, it's like all you're trying to do is pull people back into that realm of to create and to enjoy and to see things wither and to come back through, like to be part of the cycle is enough, unless you overthink it at times too. Like I guess the 9-to-5 thing, like that's where it gets hard for people, man. You spin your wheels excessively,
yeah,
to have done nothing different than what you would have,
Yeah, I mean, I'm facing that right now, and it's like it's hard to stay motivated the way that I would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm facing like, all right, well, I don't really have any job prospects that are like lined up and available. So I'm just like applying to things that I see and hoping that I can find something that I actually enjoy going in to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
But most of that is not that, most of it is doing a job to make money and you don't like it. And so it's like, it's hard to avoid that,
For sure.
You have to a big part of it is like lucky timing and having the right skills in the right place where they're needed at the right time. And, I think the thing that keeps me pushing through is that, the randomness of life, and that things, I don't know, like kind of, karma, if you're a good person, then generally things will work out. It might not be exactly what you had wanted.
Yeah.
But
you had mentioned earlier, like, so to be able to let things go is something that, we should all see as something we can improve in ourselves, because we're all guilty of taking things personally, of holding on to our anxieties, of holding on to baggage of things that we cannot change. And I don't even know where I was going with that, like, and I'm okay with that too. I just got to forget and move on, man. But like with a job that's going to fulfill you, like it will just walk into your life, if it's really the calling. And that's a hard thing too, is the patience that takes to get there. Like some people break out in their 50s in the artistic world, and that's a bizarre thought, to think I got another 30 to put in before shit goes right. But if you feel good about it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think I certainly have very high expectations for myself, and that's all artificial. That's a lot of it's ego driven, And so it's like I've been trying to kind of like change my perception of what I think I should be doing. And my dad's a business person, and so it's like you kind of titles and you move up through the company, and titles are pretty important, and
especially
in that
in the corporate world.
Exactly. And I think not explicitly, but I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really like meaningless. And if I'm stressing myself out and making myself like, you know, more anxious and not happy on a daily basis because I want to have this specific outcome,
mm-hmm.
I need to open up my life to not be as hard on myself and like not be as judgmental of different jobs that, you know, I might have perceived as someone who like didn't go to college. That's a job for people who didn't go to college, or thinking of myself as, you know, maybe like smarter or more creative than I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I don't know.
You need that self-doubt if you're going to be humble, for sure. And there's also, like, we were taught that certain qualifications, if you get a degree, you're going to get a job that pays you this much, and it's going to be able to buy you a house, and you're going to get out of debt. And sometimes you end up at a point in history where the odds are stacked against you. It's like, think of everyone that wanted to be an aspiring artist in Poland in 1938 or whatever, and here come the Nazis. It's like there's so much unpredictability, and the fact that we get awarded whatever freedom we have right now is a blessing that we definitely have to take and push for. But I think we also, as creatives, know that you're unaware of what you're capable of until you were given the space to do so. And in an easy job description that pays $45K a year with HR and benefits and shit, they want you to do this thing like that, and that's it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's unsatisfactory. You know, we aren't called to follow the rules of this particular gig.
Yeah, no, it's exactly my feeling. It's like, you know, they just released the new photos from the new telescope that they sent up, the James Webb telescope, maybe even yesterday or the day before. And it's like, you know, in this huge, gigantic universe that we're in, I'm going to spend my days typing emails in a cubicle or in an office, sending emails and making phone calls for the majority of my life. It's like it just seems like such a big waste, a waste of time, waste of energy.
Especially when we're 200 years into the U.S. as we know it doing the capitalism thing. And corporations that have a certain product line succeed for whatever reason that the market demands. You know, like things are naturally going to rise at the top. But sometimes there's some things that just don't offer any value that you feel as a working part of that team that leaves you disinterested in it. Or it goes the opposite way. Like I dated a gal who worked for an AstroTurf company in the marketing department, and she loved that shit. And I think that's awesome. But there's plenty of people that, like, my dad now works in the packaging world. And he likes his job because he likes running a team and being part of that, and that's a fulfilling part. But I'm sure there's people at that company that say, I don't like bubble wrap. I don't like selling cardboard. I don't like working with what's going on here. And that's such a struggle when there's certain jobs that pay certain amounts and we're very far from subsistence, you know, like we're talking about food shortages on the news and I'm still selling bubble wrap. You know what I mean? Like there's something going on here where we realize that if you were able to grow enough food for yourself to eat, then you're free to do what you want. You know, build a house on your land. And that's the kind of freedom that hopefully we can get back to in the next 10 years of a great country that has the world's greatest opportunities that may be going through some shit like the rest of them right now. Cool. Sorry. I was just making sure it wasn't one of these because then it's like the video gets all construed and weird shit.
No, but yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Like, getting back to subsistence,
yes.
It's heavy.
Yeah, well, that's my goal. I mean, and yeah, well, I mean, it's like, where do you, for so many reasons, you know, it's like what's the pesticides that are on our food, the plastics, the plastic in the water, and the antibiotics in the hormones in the meat. You know, it's like you can't escape the corporate poisoning that's going on. You know,
and it's
too late too. It's like really for us, maybe for our kids, we can do something to make it better for. Yeah. But I've heard something crazy, like there's like a credit card's worth of plastic in our blood now. It's
and you're always consuming stuff. Like I'm very guilty of microwaved foods in my life. Like I was convinced that if I ate a microwave bag of vegetables every day, I'm doing something beneficial for my health. And I was doing it for a while, and then someone said, like, just because they say it's okay to microwave in that bag doesn't mean it is. And you're right. There's something about profitability and liability that in the hope of pulling these two things apart, raising what you're going to make off it and making sure that no one's coming back and suing you 40 years down the line, like we've lost the integrity of a lot of our products. So when you meet people that I got a buddy named he goes by Cosmic Charlie. He lives up in like the Maumee area, and he's like one of the fittest looking dudes I know, and he grows his own food, and you don't get the same yield. Sometimes you don't get have the same meals. You don't get the same convenience. But if you see someone doing that, it's enough to click on the light bulb and be like, oh my, we're so far from where we need to be, and this is a now issue. Like, this thing to change right here, right now. And I'm trying to do that by drinking a little bit less soda and not microwaving my shit all the time. And I'm like, that's not enough,
Yeah, well, I mean, we have modern conveniences, and it's hard to forego that when it's right there.
For sure. It's a leash in a lot of ways. The convenience and the ease of our lives is something that's holding us back from being full. Like I like the feeling of being on the road with no idea of how much money we're gonna make or how well our sleeping situation is gonna go. Like the ambiguity of survival turns on some things that are very good in your life, but it also puts you in some risk and like it. Again, I don't know how much that I'm ready to accept and to dive both feet into. I'm assuming 10 years from now things are going to be way crazier. So I do hope I have a plot of land and some mean cabbage growing. But what happens in between, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's no even a year from now. You can't even like make plans for a year from today, like vacation.
Yeah,
like even something as simple as like buying a plane ticket to go somewhere a year from now. It's like
you're taking way more risk.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like you have no idea what's going to be happening, or even if the plane will even be there to fly you to where you're trying to go.
Yeah,
it's like
I was terrified about that this weekend because we were flying guys out to Kansas City for this show. It's like odds of this getting delayed, like 70%.
It's insane. I mean, being a pilot is such a difficult job.
Yeah.
Just like you're traveling all the time, you're never at home. If you have a family, you're spending extended time away from your family. Mm-hmm. And it's like why would someone sign up for that? Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you recruit people to come do that?
They want to be a bird, man. You just gotta.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Literally, they like flying. That's the reason why.
Yeah. And at some point, I'm sure that job goes stale. Until you have like the comfy Delta flight that you get to go home at the end of the day. Dude, here's a major tangent. How do you think the human body will evolve when we get off this rock and get to go hang out on another one? Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to be like the first couple of things to go?
I don't know. I mean, it's like hard to imagine like holes closing different, mm-hmm. It's like there's got to be some, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I feel like there would be changes in your brain, probably.
I didn't even think about that. Just like because it has different atmospheric pressure, and like it'll have different ways of working with itself, even. Mm-hmm.
What about this? I mean, this is random, but since there's no gravity or lower gravity, assuming there's lower gravity, mm-hmm. you're not inside some device that makes it Earth-like. Are our heads gonna be the same shape without gravity like forming them into something? Maybe that's when we start to get like
more expansion.
I don't know. I don't know.
Also bone density is definitely going to go down. I've definitely heard that like if you spend more than a year on the space station, you're going to have some difficulties when you come back. Mm-hmm. And it's like you just imagine like your muscular structure is so much less important in a place that has less gravity. Mm-hmm. and then maybe so is like some of the water content of that muscle. So like you become a smaller being in some ways, or
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading a book called Sapiens now,
yeah,
and it's just like the history of Homo sapiens as best as we know, because it goes back so far.
it's so eerie at some point, man. Like you just think about like the difference in the size of your mandible because of how processed our foods are. Like what happens when you're living on Mars and everything's liquid form? Like you just have the world's smallest mouth.
Mm-hmm.
When do we go telepathic? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is there something like that now?
Yeah.
That we just can't actively, like turn on and turn off. It's a little more like hidden in there. You don't have full control over it.
Yeah, it's weird when twins kind of have that though.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's gotta, I mean, it just makes sense. You started from the same egg, the same sperm, and split.
Yeah.
And so you're like pretty much identical.
Yeah, like
And you were together.
for so long.
Yeah, I don't know, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting. Like I feel that way about we're talking about a Ben's pup. It's like you have these beings that only know you through like one of their sensory like receptors, and like if you come from such a similar place, like you probably do have the ability to communicate without these senses that you were deprived of for 9 months of the closest part of your relationship, you know?
Right.
But like when you look a dog in the eye too, man, like there's something where now we're starting to connect and feel certain things, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only difference between eye contact, eye communication, that's pretty deep. And that's like straight, I mean, I guess you can be manipulative, but is that already kind of, because you're communicating without expressly like
Yeah.
exchanging anything,
It's almost like sign language in the way that's like you're visually getting a lot from that. And one thing I learned about the masks is like we don't just verbally communicate. Like we're so far from that. And if I can't read someone's lips, my processing of their information goes out the window. Like I was watching an artist named Rick Wilson at Summerfest, and he was like an upbeat kind of funky rapper, and I couldn't understand shit. And then I started watching him on the Jumbotron, and suddenly I'm catching the whole message of this song. And then you start to think about like, okay, eye contact on top of that. When we start to lose these bits of like nuance and intention, like the verbal is definitely not enough at that point, you know?
Yeah, or it's not telling the whole story.
Yeah.
Because you can say words and they can mean, you can be meaning what you're meaning. There can be innuendo. There can be double, it's like what you need more context to actually, it's like Twitter.
Yeah.
It's like there's no context. It's just the words.
For sure.
So,
but sometimes a written word also has such a different like place in our lives. Like a good book will have different sensory experiences that you can't touch without that. But like, so tell me, in your art, when you try to go for something that's open-ended, is that to kind of balance out the side of your normal life where you want to be understood, or is that kind of part of just who you are?
Yeah, no, I think that's very perceptive of you. I'm self-taught. I've never taken, I've taken one painting class, but it was for like 2 days. And so it's not very extensive. You don't really get a lot of time to work with the techniques and stuff. So that being the case, it's like, I went through the whole process, I got my original like creative expression was producing music. That's how I got into the eMedia program was, making like beats on a computer.
That's awesome.
Well, I went to school originally as a business student. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed a good job for after I graduated. And then psychedelics entered my life, and I kind of rethought this whole thing of waiting to do what interests you until you have the money and the stability to do that. You just kind of realize that the longer you wait, the less energy you have, the more other commitments that you have, and you won't actually have the amount of time and energy that you think you will. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to give this a shot. So it started with music. I grew up playing guitar some, but I'm nowhere near a professional musician. Skills.
But still like the first like creative.
Yeah. Well, I played cello in 4th grade
That's
as part of the
awesome.
school band. But it was mostly plucking. We barely used the bow. So,
Cool.
we're like 8. So
yeah,
it's like,
bow's incredibly difficult.
yeah. Well, it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
And which is what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so expressive. So started with playing music. I am definitely a more visual person, and I came to learn that through experimenting with drugs and kind of trying to deep dive on how I perceive the world and what I had to offer and where I thought my skill set was. And so when you start painting, you just have a blank canvas in front of you, and how do you decide what you want to put on that canvas? What's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do figure stuff? Do you want to do abstract things? Do you want to do landscape? Do you want to, it's like, and in what style I don't know how to paint. So I'm just slapping paint on a canvas. It's abstract. This is my thought process. You can create abstract art without having any technical skills. So that was my approach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stick to the more abstract lane because I don't have any technical skills. And this is also me, like, not being quite as experienced, but, like, and being super self-critical, like, having the picture of what I want it to be in my head and not being able to do that.
Yeah.
So I kept simplifying my ideas until I was, like, able to do what I had in my head. And then...
What a great lesson for anyone that's... Because I think that's the artist's biggest conundrum is if you master a medium, whether it be photography or an instrument, the ability to go from mind to execution is there. But to have the yearning for that medium not dilute you, but simplify you to a place of peace in that, and then get to grow from there is really crazy, man.
Yeah, well, I had to, that was kind of my world, like following artist documentaries, artist history.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's like I have to come up with some kind of regular technique that I can try and hone and develop, because right now I'm like trying different ideas and I can't finish anything.
Gotcha.
Because I don't have the skill set to actually like technically put correct lighting, on stuff. Like I don't do a lot of figure or faces stuff, but I'll do like landscape things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really hard to get the lighting to look right,
compared to what you want it to look like,
just to make it
or realistic.
Yeah, real.
Okay.
Well, not realistic as in like photorealistic,
Mm-hmm.
but how the light would bounce off things and
Gotcha.
the difference in tones and values
Mm-hmm.
that shadows create, and how to use light and shadow to make things look 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all these skills that take people a decade to hone and develop. But I'm an impatient and in college, and so I wanted to have things that I could finish now. And so, yeah, I just kept simplifying it. And, I mean, especially now, I feel like people I don't want to say that I was like basing what I was doing off of the culture now, but it's like things are definitely kind of like being simplified and modernized.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as busy,
It's not as it's not as digested, like you need stuff that can be taken in within a certain time frame. Like it's an interesting thing to think about in music and art, that if I want them to get into the verses, then the chorus needs to hit. If I want them to get into the brush strokes, then the image needs to catch. And so, like, to ask them to devolve what's going on within the art takes the initial hook to be sharper now more than ever, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's also, I'm jealous of all my musician friends from the immediate connection that you have with an audience, being a performer. Like, you really get to see it in real time. And I think people connect with music and are more open to connecting with music.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think visual art, or like painting specifically, is a history of being very pretentious. And it's so subjective, where I feel like music is a little more like, unless you're like a person that chooses not to like things, then like you can get into like pretty much any song and appreciate it for the musicianship, for whatever you like about it or don't like about it. You can still appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, it's easier to identify, and I think there's more common jargon there.
Mm-hmm. And you can move, you know?
Yeah.
It's interactive. You're interacting with the art more than you are looking at something
exactly.
that's
you touch
flat.
it and someone swats your fucking hand. They're like, please,
yeah,
you came to a
right.
museum.
Or like Grateful Dead, you know, the whole vibe is come here and be yourself and dance and move and be free.
Yeah.
And then, you know, looking at paintings or stuff in an art gallery, it's quiet.
Yeah.
There's like jazz in the background. You're whispering to your friend. Oh yeah, that's very cool. You know, it's like
reading this ornate plaque next to it about who this is.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I think I wanted to make something that so my idea to make it pop, like you said, was to try and create something that anyone who looked at it could see something different in. And it's how do you cultivate that? So that's what I've been working on for the last like 3 years, or with that idea in mind of stuff like this.
If you don't mind showing that to this
Here,
camera,
let me know if it's in frame.
Yeah,
I like it that way.
That's perfect. Yeah, man.
So
that even down to the orientation to say I like it that way. You can like it this way.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's totally open.
Yeah. Well, and it has a level of provoking that goes on within it. It's like some of this has the smooth contour and some of it has an edge, and you connect with those things, you know. And how often do you take people who've engaged with your art and listen through their process?
Yeah, I love it. That's why I do it.
Okay, word.
The thing that makes me the most happy is I'll say, here's this painting. And they say, oh, yeah, it's I could totally see the horse in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like they immediately see some kind of image. It's like, that's not what I see. That's not what I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they instantly, it's
unseeable. You know?
It's the way that your eyes process an image and what your brain creates based on all of your previous life experiences.
That's interesting.
So it's like, that's as open-ended as it can get.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like classical psychology when they show you an image and they say to rationalize it, except now you're going the opposite direction. You know, You're creating the art assuming that this is going to be for them to find themselves. You know, it's a mirror as much as it is a piece.
Well, I lived with Ben for a year, my last year of college, and that's when the music for him was starting to pop a little bit. Mm-hmm. He got hooked up with this band now, White Lighter.
Ben Jervis, White Lighter check. Going to New York City, are you going on that?
If I don't have a job that will require me to be there, then yes, I'm planning on going and shooting video for them. So
make sure you get those Least of All albums, everybody. It's a great piece of vinyl. It's an amazing company, but the White Lighter boys do kick ass.
Yeah,
continue.
Custom 45s.
Yeah.
Each recording is recorded that one time and cut live onto the vinyl, so it's a pretty cool experience.
Number named for you.
Yeah.
You know, and you can go in and I'm sure they'll give you a shout out on these things. You know, I mean, like get it because it's special.
And reasonably priced too.
Yes.
I was blown away. I was expecting it to be like $45. They're like $30 for.
Yeah. And there's a decent amount of margin for the artist in that too.
That's great.
You can fund a tour if that particular project really popped off. It's an exhausting day in the studio to cut the same song 45 times, but that's a difference you can make to someone forever.
Yeah. Well, I'm pumped, and I'm pumped for them too, because it's been exciting to kind of be there since the beginning and see them kind of grow in the local scene and see Ben go from a frustrated artist to someone who's can actually express himself through his music. Because having the band really completes the sounds. If you're going for a band type of music, you need a band to make that kind of music.
Yes.
So
yeah, especially when you have that kind of power, like he has a level of liftoff vocally that needs the backing chaos of a drum set and a bass player and that full emotion.
I agree. Yeah, he can get loud and boisterous, and you need a loud sound for that to really make sense. But I try and steer him and give him suggestions of things that I think I would like to hear him sing.
Yeah. Well, that's
or like this, I think you guys would sound great with this kind of thing. But it's like, anyway.
It's a great thing to be able to do in an artistic community, though. For me to send you a painting that meant something to me, and to see that come out through a friend, it's like that's the beautiful thing about these mediums. You don't need to deprive yourself of the joy of someone else's work to not enjoy your own. You know what I mean? Like, you could eat that meal and this meal.
Oh, yeah, and there's no shortage of meals you can eat in this sense.
Exactly.
You can eat all the meals and not get fat.
Exactly. It is an infinite, like, rabbit hole of exploration that you don't need to be afraid of in that, you know?
No. Yeah, I mean, especially if you go into things where you're like, I like people creating things, and it can be a whatever, then you have, it's like, it's just candy. You can just eat candy all day.
Yes, endless indulgence in that.
Yeah, and it makes you feel good.
For sure.
So
well,
it's like...
sometimes, you know, like we were talking about, like, the outliers. Like, I never went to, like, what's the big metal fest that goes on in
Warped Tour?
Not Warped Tour, Rock on the Range is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But you watch people, like, moshing in a video, and you're like, that is an outlet that I would have never thought to create, but thank God it's here, because these people obviously need it. Like, this is like adult flag football with no flags and full contact, and people are like, I'm willing to put my forehead to your forehead. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, throwing bows.
Exactly. These wild motherfuckers.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, you see it at, like, the hardcore shows, and people they're just swinging their fists. Like, whoever gets it gets it. You know.
Dude, and that's a great way to put all the art. Like, whoever gets it, gets it, you know? Like, sometimes I want your bass line to punch me square in the nose. Like, I want to feel this in a violent way, and that's needed on my end, man.
Yeah.
I want to headbang till it hurts.
Yeah. Well, that's why music is so special.
Yeah.
It takes over your body.
For sure.
You know? And, like, that's kind of the point I was getting to before, was living with Ben, living with a professional musician. It's like, I'm jealous of the interaction and the response that he can have with the audience. He's going up and he's putting himself out there, and I'm not really a performer, but I was like, how can I get people to interact with my art more like music? And a big inspiration for me was listening to jazz. And the thing I really love about jazz is that there's space to make mistakes in the final product, and people don't judge it. They know that you were either trying something that didn't work, or you try something and mess it up and have to try it again, and it's part of the art form. Yeah, it's not. People don't look at that as a mistake.
But and also it's a place where it has controlled dissonance, where I think we're starting to lack that more and more, or we find it in different ways. But in shorter videos, it's hard to have dissonance that resolves in a way that feels constructive. It's like, here's my options. This, homemade version of the Food Network, where this guy's making badass cannolis, or cops shooting people. Okay, these are your two rabbit holes on this one social media platform. It's like, I don't need these two jagged things. I need a combination of everything where I can feel the spectrum of what I am. And jazz does that so brilliantly, man. You hear the room agree and disagree and combat in the most, involved way.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little like, it's happening right now, especially not all jazz, because some stuff is like, like pre-written and they're going for a certain kind of vibe or whatever. But the stuff that I like a lot is, like you're saying, kind of, there's a looseness. They're experimenting, and whatever comes out is the thing. And then they go on to the next thing and do that. And there's no looking back,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
We make mistakes, and I'm putting it out there and being vulnerable about it, and hoping that the audience has forgiveness and will eventually appreciate the mistakes, because that's what actually makes it have more character,
That's powerful, man. That made me think in that moment of, like, I need to say it wrong in order to say it right. And there needs to be a sense of self-forgiveness and communal forgiveness, so that people can right their wrongs in a way that feels productive. And especially when that happens musically. That's my favorite thing, is a moment of jamming and someone takes a direction that I did not know and that I may fear initially, and then you get in the waters of it and you find yourself blissfully floating downstream, man. You're in that bit of consciousness, and you are alive to the moment.
Yeah, and painting is not a collaborative art form for the most part. And being in a band really forces you to confront that. It's like as I think Ben's experienced this some too. But being like the lead singer, the front man of a band, you have an idea of what you want it to be, but you also have to consider what the rest of the band wants. It's like you have to be equals in that process for you all to be satisfied.
For sure.
And you have to compromise. And maybe you're going to put out a song you don't actually like that much, but it's to keep the band tight, to keep everyone flowing in the same direction. But it's so hard, it's like that's why bands break up all the time. It's
for
like,
sure. And your favorite bands are bound to break up. Like that's one thing about the Beatles that they say, like anyone could bring any idea to the table and we give it a fair shot. And I think we're a little too precious at times. Like there's songs of mine that I am not a huge fan of that other people tell me they enjoy. So who am I to judge? It's like I am just a person playing through the muse and whatnot.
Yeah.
This particular visual and what I can imagine like a way that your art could come to life in this live environment. I was playing this house show in Bowling Green, Ohio once. It was a Halloween house show. This place is fucking bumping. I mean, it is asses and elbows, and everyone's hammered. And there's this dude with like what I imagined was the oldest projector in your grade school. The type like
the overhead projector with the light in the
fat
bottom.
Bulb comes out, yeah, man. And it's like you look at this, like, just the plug looks like it's seen wars, And he plugs this shit in, it heats up, and he's just spilling oil on the plate and rotating it. It's like I would love to see someone that had a full screen version of their canvas that could go from one color spectrum to the other color spectrum with absolute freedom, that can drag straight through this thing and do what they want and just project that over a band in a way.
Yeah, no, that exists. People are already doing that.
That sounds crazy.
And there's different ways, I've had ideas for things like that, but there's like equipment cost and things and material costs, because like with the oil that he's doing, or like I've had the idea with doing something similar but with inks and water. So you get more of like a 3D effectness to it.
So it has more like
you're seeing through like an inch of water.
Okay, yeah.
From the camera. So you get like the diffusion from the water reflecting itself.
That's crazy.
And this is all in my head, I've never tried this. I don't know if it would work.
Yeah.
But you have to buy like oils, or if you're using inks, you have to buy that every time that you do a performance. Yeah. So it's like repeat cost, and if you're not making much money, there's going to have to be a decent amount of experimenting even beforehand.
Yeah.
But it's something I would love to try and get into. And then there's digital ways to do it too.
Yeah, which seems like the future, because that's like because the problem with that is like a projector only has so much reach. You have to be a certain space from the canvas, whatever you're using for that. But we should collab on something like that, man. I think we're an HDMI cable away from shit really going down.
Yeah, we just need a camera and HDMI cable and whatever you're shooting it at.
So you're saying a camera coming in to manipulate over?
It depends. I mean, if you can do stuff live, you would just have to have a camera plugged into a projector.
Yeah.
And that projector is projecting whatever you're doing.
Have you gone to Radio Artifact yet?
I don't think so, no.
So these guys do great live albums and great live
where you
streams.
just recorded yours,
Yes,
right?
exactly. It's coming out on Friday. I'm super stoked about it. Please check that shit out. Please. God damn. Okay. They do a great thing there where they have their live stream cameras set up so that they can go for like the intimate lapsing into each other, or put like some kind of weird filter and play with the exposure live.
Yeah.
And that kind of shit just has a different effect, man. It's so much transportation going on,
Yeah, I mean, it's like they were doing that at the Dead show.
Yes. Yeah, man, there were some moments with
drums in space. They bring in, and everything starts like, it looks like it's like ripping apart, and then it comes back together, and you're like, okay, the visuals are really matching the sounds right now.
Yeah. This guy's in a jazz kind of mindset. It has that freedom and the love for mistakes and whatnot.
Yeah. And I mean, you do that a bunch with the same group.
Totally.
Then you start to tune it in, you dial it in, And yeah, I mean, no, that would be, I'd love to experiment with stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, brother, I see many things for collaborating in the future, but is there anything that you want to plug before we wrap this up?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'll shout out my Instagram.
Please, yeah.
It's IAM_size, SIZE, like a shoe size. Those are my initials. I feel like I broke into the IM a little sooner. My initials are AM size. So I just slapped the I on there.
All right, ball out, AOL, baby.
Yeah, oh my God. But that's it. I don't post a ton. I only post things I really like on there. So
yeah. And are you currently open to gig work as a videographer, as a graphic designer? Cool.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, anything. If you go to my Instagram, I have examples of my video on there. I have examples of my artwork and a link to my website where you can find my full photo and video portfolio. If you like what I do, reach out. I've got free time right now, so and looking for work. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming over and hanging today, brother. I appreciate it. This has been a great kickoff to a friendship that I'm sure will last us hella years.
Yeah, Matt. This has been great. Thank you.
Cool. Let's do it, man. My man, hey, how you doing? That was nice, Andrew. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Like I said, if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook, make sure you go to YouTube for the full unedited version. That is it for this week's episode. Let's run down the dates really quick. The 25th of this month, we have the next install of the Monday's Muse at Latitudes with a special Christmas in July edition. There isn't a ton going into that, but if you want to dress festive and celebrate the holidays, come on, do it at Latitudes. Make sure you call in and get a reservation in advance. This place does fill up, and we want to make sure you get the good seats. For the in-town shows, this coming Wednesday, the 20th, I'm going to be at the Tin Roof starting at, I have 9 o'clock written down. That's probably going to be 10 o'clock, but let's just go with 9 for right now. We're going to go with 9 o'clock this Wednesday at the Cincy Tin Roof. The 24th, I'm at Fishbowl at the Banks every single Sunday night starting at 8 p.m. I will miss the following week, but I will be back on the 7th. The next Wednesday, 8/3. Actually, I'll take a quick summer vacation going to Hilton Head with the family. But August 3rd, I'll be back at the Tin Roof starting at 9 o'clock. August 4th, we have a private event for Health Carousel over at Coney Island. Again, a private event, but if you walk by, you hear the music, make sure you let me know. That will be with the 4-piece, and we're looking forward to getting down for y'all. The 5th, I am going to be at the Rookwood Pub. That show starts at 7 o'clock. Great food, great staff, easy location, horrible parking. I will tell you more about that the night of. It's kind of hellish. And then the 7th, I'm back at Fishbowl at the Banks. And I should be there for most of the month of August. Shouldn't be missing as many dates. July was just a crazy month. Our tour schedule has been reckless as hell. Okay, let's look at the final bit of July dates. All we got left is this coming Friday at Liberty Township. I'm playing Liberty Center on the Green from 6 to 8 p.m., solo acoustic. The 23rd, I'm at the Lexington Tin Roof starting at 10:30 p.m. The 28th, I am at the Tiki Hut in Hilton Head with my man Kenneth St. Hilaire starting at 6 o'clock. And then the 30th, me and Kenneth will be joined by Nick Hack for a little bit of that trio get down. And just now being announced, the August dates are here, everybody. August 6th, I am going to be at the St. John's Parish Festival out in Hamilton with the band. They got the whole band with the horn section. It's going to be banging. Show starts at 9 o'clock. The 11th, I am at the Little Miami Brewing Company starting at 6 p.m. The 12th, I am solo acoustic. Actually, no, we're trio at the Lexington Roof starting at 10:30 p.m. Is that right? What day of the week is that? I don't know this shit that well. Moving on. The 18th, we're going to be in Asheville, North Carolina at One World Brewing downtown. I'll be joined by my man Jake Burns of Rockstead. The 20th, I will be in Columbia, South Carolina for a sweet return. Friends in town, give me a shout. The 20th, I am making that drive back to Cincinnati to play Grainworks out in Westchester starting at 7 p.m. The 25th, we're going to Indianapolis. We're playing at the Rathskeller, a gorgeous outdoor beer garden. Make sure you have that on your schedule. It's a Thursday night. We spend 2 nights in Indy that weekend. We're going to the Tin Roof the next night starting at 10 p.m. On the 27th, we're going to be in Kansas City at the Tin Roof out in Missouri. Come check us out. And then finally, I got a solo acoustic date at the Blind Squirrel in Florence on the 31st starting at 6 p.m. Plenty more dates to come. The website is being updated as we speak, so make sure you check out all the shows. Come see me whenever it's convenient for you. And thanks for watching, everybody. I love you. Peace.